So good morning, folks. My name is Vinay Murthy. I'm the head of business development at Waymaker, and I'll be conducting the webinar this morning. The topic for the webinar is leveraging platforms to modernize your enterprise. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started here. I'm going to do the presentation for about 30-40 minutes. There should be plenty of time for a Q&A at the end. So if you're a participant on the call, please start sending in your questions whenever you get a chance. Towards the end, if the question is relevant to everybody, I'm going to read it aloud without your name and answer those questions, okay? And thanks again for joining the webinar this morning. So this is the agenda that we put together for the webinar. So I'm going to start with the big picture. I'll talk about the state of modernization within enterprises. And then following that, I'll talk about Waymaker's approach to modernization for the enterprise IT. And then we're going to take a closer look at the Waymaker platform itself. And after that, I have a couple of user stories or case studies that I want to share with you. And then towards the end, we should have plenty of time for Q&A. So please do send in your questions. So before we get started, I just want to give a quick word on the company and who we are. So Waymaker is in the business of providing a platform for rapid application development and delivery to enterprise customers. So Waymaker, the company itself, has been around for 10 plus years now. It was an independent company, very successful independent company, and they were owned by, Waymaker was owned by VMware for a period of time. About 4 years ago, our parent company bought Waymaker from VMware, and since that time, the platform has been completely updated. So what you see on the right are some of the enterprise customers that we have. So let's talk about the state of modernization within enterprises today. So the first question really is, what's really driving modernization today in the enterprises, right? So if you look at it from an IT perspective, the business needs are constantly changing, and there's an expectation from the business owners that IT will continue to adapt to all of the new changes in business, the new business models that are coming along on a regular basis. So this puts a lot of focus on the applications being developed and delivered by enterprise ITs today. So there's an expectation from businesses that the applications being delivered are, performance-wise, they're extremely good, very reliable applications, security, scalability, and also very efficient to operate this application. So there's a lot of demand being placed on enterprise IT from the businesses. At the same time, the approaches that were used by enterprise IT to build these applications and deliver these applications to businesses, these old approaches are failing. They're not living up to the expectation of the business users. There's a limitation on the agility of these applications, the limitations on scalability, integration challenges, and more importantly, the timelines or the project duration for delivering of these applications. So while these two are going on within an enterprise, the good news is, there's a lot of new technology being developed outside of enterprises that are actually modern technologies that are available to help the IT across the entire portfolio. And these technologies, new platforms are, proven. They're easier to integrate with the existing systems, and they help to meet the new business requirements, new business models that are being coming out now. So why, while this has been going on for some years now, right? And then the question becomes, why the urgency now, right? Why do the modernization within an organization today? So the reason also is, as most of you know, the enterprise IT backlog is continuing to grow. Every year, more and more projects are being added to enterprise IT teams to deliver on. While that's going on, and even if you look at it more closely at what's happening from last year to this year, one of the survey statistics show that the 27% more projects being added on in 2018, and with 10% less budget than last year, right? So that puts a lot of pressure on IT. And the old methods of purely outsourcing IT projects to IT services companies, or even using in-house development, is not working out, right? And this is actually very clear at the business level, or what we call the foreground. And at the same time, in the background, what we see happening within enterprise IT is, IT itself, the organization of the IT itself is getting, decentralized, meaning a lot of IT teams are getting more aligned with the business units that they work with. There is that going on. There is also, a continuous everything, continuous integration, continuous delivery, that's building up over some time now. And there's an expectation from IT that whatever that they deliver has to be an omni-channel experience, meaning all of the application services has to work across all of the many devices that you see in enterprises today. And finally, with the availability of public cloud infrastructure, there's a lot of expectation from business owners that IT will start leveraging all of this public infrastructure. So these are some of the forces that are playing in enterprise IT today. Now, if you decide that you want to start doing your modernization this year, right, the question becomes, what should be the key considerations for you, right, as you go about modernizing your applications and delivery of those applications to the business users. The first one I would say is, the first thing that you have to look at is the application development platform itself, like, how easy it is to build applications on top of that, right? You should be looking at a platform that that allows you to do a repeatable process. You don't have to invent a new process for building every new application. It has to be very repeatable. And you also have to look at a platform that allows you to reuse as much as possible, right? So you have to be thinking about assembling the application rather than building an application from scratch every time. That's an important consideration. And finally, the learning curve for your developers, or even if you bring in external consultants, it has to be really easy so that you can be more productive with the platform. So that's on the application development side. If you look at the deployment side, then you have to think about how easy it is to move my workloads, or how easy it is to move my applications to the cloud, right? There's only a small percentage of applications that are running in the cloud today. And the trend within enterprise IT is to shift more and more of the workload into the cloud. So when you look at it from that perspective, right, the modern technology that's available today is containers. So applications are being deployed into the cloud as containers. They're getting orchestrated. There's orchestration for these containers as well. Then you also have to look at the DevOps side of things, right? How quickly you can release your applications or products into the marketplace, right? And then there's a consideration for whether you want to still continue to use your own private data cloud, or you want to use a combination of private and public cloud, right? So there is that consideration as well for you. The third consideration should be the maintenance of these applications once you've developed and delivered them. It's always expected that these applications, the business requirements are going to change over time, and that's to be expected. So you have to continuously update it, continuously maintain this application. So you have to look at is there a low cost way of making the changes? More importantly, you have to look at are you getting locked into a particular vendor, right? And you should never get locked into a particular vendor solution, because you need the flexibility to move your application from one platform to another. In fact, you should be able to move your workloads from one public cloud to another cloud without any consequences for you, right? So that's some consideration that you have to keep in mind. And finally, the extensibility of whatever platform that you pick, right? So like I said earlier, the expectation from business these days is to every application has to be multi-channel, meaning we have to work seamlessly across all of the different devices. And then the architecture also comes into play, right? Is it a microservices-based architecture so that it becomes scalable? Can it integrate with a lot of the existing systems that are out there, right? So these are the key considerations that you have to keep in mind while you pick the right platform for your modernization needs. So now that you know the key consideration, then the question becomes, what are the foundational elements that I have to look for in a platform, right? There are a lot of platforms, a lot of technologies that are out there, but here are some of the foundational elements that you have to look for when you start thinking about modernization. The first one is actually the APIs, right? You have a ton of data, you have a ton of services or backend systems. The first thing that you want to do is to see if a platform can automatically generate the APIs for all of your backend data, right? So this helps you scale your applications. It helps you reuse your applications, get into a microservices based architecture framework. So this API stuff is really important. The second one is, a low-code platform. A low-code platform or a rapid application development platform allows you to visually build applications. And not only do you build applications, the code is automatically generated. So you have to make sure that the code that's generated is based on open standards, and the application itself can work seamlessly across all of the different devices, meaning they're very responsive. The third thing is, once you develop this application, how do you, containerize them? How do you deploy them into the cloud, right? And that's an important consideration these days. And closely tied to that is the DevOps process. There is a ton of manual work being done in the DevOps team these days, and you should be looking at platforms that will help you with automation of the DevOps itself. And then finally deploying it to the cloud. It could be it could be a public cloud, or it could be a private cloud that you want to deploy your apps to. So having said that, there are a lot of technologies, a lot of vendors that are out there. Unfortunately, there is no one size fits all for when it comes to enterprise needs. So there are a lot of siloed solutions, so you have to keep that in mind as you make your pick. So let me switch gears a little bit now and talk about Waymaker's approach to modernization. So the way we look at modernization at Waymaker is, we look at, application, we look at it in three different layers, right? There is in the first layer, you have the applications. In the second layer, we look at DevOps automation. And finally, we look at the infrastructure modernization that can be doing within an enterprise. At the application layer, we're looking at a ton of legacy applications that you may have, applications built either on mainframe systems, built on Oracle forms, or built on Lotus notes, or any number of older technologies, older languages. So the challenge there is, how quickly can you move those applications into an open standards-based stack, and how to leverage the microservices architecture for future needs. Right, so that's what you need to be doing at the applications layer. In the DevOps layer, you're looking at how to automate a lot of the manual work that's been done right now. There are hundreds of scripts enterprises have written to manage the release management. And how do you automate all of that? How do you put them into containers? How do you manage these containers? And how do you monitor everything after they're deployed? Those should be the consideration in this layer. And finally, you have the infrastructure, right? You may have your own private data center. You may have a back office where you're running a lot of your applications. And the consideration there is, how do you quickly move them to the cloud, right? Whether it's a public cloud or it's your private version of the public cloud, right? So these are the three different layers that we see when it comes to modernization within an enterprise IT. So if you were to do all of this, the benefits are very obvious. You'll have faster and continuous delivery of projects. There'll be lower costs for you overall because you're standardizing on a lot of things, the application development and delivery. You're making use of components that have been well tested. So there's a lot of benefits to be had there. At the same time, you're insulating yourself from future changes and enhancements because you have a very standardized process for application development and delivery. So this is how we look at the three different layers. for modernization. So as good as our platform, Waymaker's platform is, we have an integrated platform for development and delivery. There is still some customization that has to be done. And this is where Waymaker services come into play. And we've really seen three different use cases or three different types of enterprise, depending on where they are in the journey, right? So the first one is, some enterprises come to us and say, we just need to renew our application, meaning they want to create like a, beautiful modern user interface for their existing application, right? They want to keep all of the backend as is, but they just want to do a complete refresh of their front end, right? And this is the renew phase. So if this is the use case for you, then renew would be the right way to do it. It's a quick facelift for your existing application. And in this case, the Waymaker platform will accelerate most of the application development for you. And there's very little customization that needs to be done at this point. So if your use case is to rebuild, so what we mean by rebuild is, okay, you obviously want to change the user experience, but at the same time, you want to wrap your existing data, existing services with modern APIs, right? So we actually can come in and create REST-based APIs for all of your existing data and services, essentially transforming your backend. And then once you transformed your backend, you can then integrate with the modern UI that you developed. So this is another approach. Again, Waymaker can accelerate most of this with a little bit of services component added to do any customization or adding new functionality that you may need. The final one is the replatform. This is a use case where you want to completely transition your older legacy app to a complete new stack, right? So here we're talking about a complete architecture revamp. You're rewriting your application because your functionality, your use case, the workflow for your application, everything has changed. You want really a modern system, and you also want to integrate all of the DevOps automation, right? That's available today. So if you're doing a complete overhaul, replatforming is the way to do it. And here again, Waymaker platform can help you most of the way. There might be additional customization, additional services that you may need in order to complete your project. So you can, between these three buckets, you can see where you are right now and what is it you want to do in the next 3 months, 6 months, and leverage the Waymaker platform and services to complete your modernization effort. So if you were to do all the three things that we're talking about, right, so there'll be tremendous benefits to be had, right? Just very quickly, right, on the application side, the entire end user experience is going to be very different. So they're going to get a modern interface, and you can deliver such applications at reduced cost to the business. And on the DevOps side, you eliminated a lot of the errors, a lot of the complexity that goes with manual release management. And then you can also achieve a lot of transparency in how the applications are being delivered on a regular basis. The infrastructure, if you were to upgrade from your own backend, data centers, you can actually do a lot of consolidation because you're moving everything into a single place in the cloud. You're leveraging the cloud economics, and obviously that will reduce the overall IT cost for you. So let's take a closer look at the Waymaker platform itself in the next couple of slides. So Waymaker, like I mentioned a minute ago, has an integrated platform. So across the same three layers that we're talking about, on the first layer for the application development, we have a low-code platform. We call it the Waymaker Rapid. So Waymaker Rapid it's a low-code or rapid application development platform. Think of it as a visual studio where you can drag and drop different widgets on a page to build your application. And these applications are very responsive. They're both web as well as mobile applications that you can develop on the Waymaker Rapid platform. The application code that's generated from Waymaker Rapid is completely built on open standards. We use technologies like AngularJS, we use Spring, Hibernate, Cordova, and a lot of other open source technologies. So the advantage with that is you never get locked into Waymaker platform, right? So in fact, we tell customers that once you're done the development on the Waymaker platform and deployed it, you don't even have to license the Waymaker platform once the application is fully deployed, because there are no runtime libraries or anything that you depend on the platform for. So there are a ton of features in the Waymaker Rapid platform that helps you across the entire application lifecycle development. So if you're interested, you can definitely visit our website and take a closer look at the features that we have in Waymaker Rapid. In the second layer for the DevOps automation, again, we have a platform where we can take applications, whether it's built on Waymaker or otherwise, and containerize those applications. We can set up the configuration properly so that they can be deployed across many different environments that you may have, like your staging environment, your production environment. And then finally, once the containers are deployed, so we offer orchestration for those containers. We can track everything that's being deployed through the DevOps platform that we have. We call it the high scale. So all of those monitoring, all of the data is available for you once you deployed your applications. At the infrastructure layer, we don't have a platform per se, but we do work with all of the major public cloud providers. We work with Microsoft Azure, AWS, IBM Cloud. We work with just about any public cloud infrastructure vendor out there. So we help you deploy your applications across any of these cloud infrastructure providers. So here's another look at how the modernization works with Waymaker Rapid. So if you're doing an entire replatforming of your application, so we have a process for it. So we've done this many times. So we have come up with a standardized process. So we work with you on doing a POC or an evaluation to show you, how quickly you can build applications using the Waymaker Rapid platform. Then there is a discovery phase where we actually document all of your business requirements. We come up with the wireframes, the final wireframes for your applications. And then once that's completed and signed off, then we get into the execution part, which is really the implementation. And then once that's done, there's also the maintenance for your applications. So what we can really do is, if you have legacy applications, one or more legacy applications, we can create beautiful user interfaces for that. We'll leverage the API architecture, microservices architecture for you, and ultimately deliver an application that's completely based on open standards. So your modern applications are going to be on a new technology stack. You can do all of this by completely leveraging your existing databases, existing business logic, and any integration with your system of record systems that you may have there. So we can help you completely transition from older applications to a modern technology stack. So we can do the same thing on the DevOps side as well. DevOps, as you know, it's a very manual process right now. So we can bring the same level of automation that we can do for application development. So there is, again, a discovery phase as an onboarding and helping you set up the right configuration and release management. So with Waymaker High Scale, we can help you. We can take the binary artifacts for your application and put them into containers. Docker is a technology that we use. And once we've containerized those applications, then we can deploy them into the cloud and do all of the orchestration. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So we can do the orchestration, and then once they're deployed, you can also measure, how many times the applications are being deployed, where the containers are running, and all of that across many different environments that you may have, right? And finally deploy it into the cloud of your choice. So here is, how we look at how the deployment would work. At the infrastructure layer, like I said, we work with all of the major cloud service providers, whether it's AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. platform or VMware. So we work with all of them. And the orchestration layer, we have done a lot of work around orchestration, container orchestration for many years now. And more recently, we started supporting Kubernetes. It's the emerging standards for container orchestration. So so we support any public cloud that supports the Kubernetes interface, right? Which is an open standard. So it could be across Amazon, it could be OpenShift or Azure, and you can use a high-scale platform to do all that. So with that, I want to again share a couple of stories from our customer side, and give you the full picture, right? So the first one is around using the Waymaker Rapid platform. So we work with the largest law society in Canada. They came to us. They had in a mainframe-based application, AS400-based application, built on COBOL, built on RPG, had thousands of green screens, right? They came to us and essentially said they wanted to modernize their entire application and build, add a lot of new functionality, change the workflow. They had hundreds of internal users, hundreds of external users for their application. Pretty critical piece, the core application for the business. So we looked at, we went through the replatforming work for them, right? So we did a POC. We've been working with them for a couple of years now. So we went through the evaluation phase where we did a POC for them. We did the discovery and then the implementation and the maintenance. So what we've done for them is, we've leveraged all of their existing data, transformed it completely to meet the new business requirements, right? So we've done that, updated the schema completely. And once we transform the data, we were able to automatically generate the APIs for all of the data. In fact, for every table, we have a set of new APIs that can be called on, right? So we've done the backend transformation. At the same time, we completely updated their front-end user interface, right? We've leveraged Waymaker platform to visually create all of the new screens, the workflows. They had a ton of requirements around supporting multiple languages, supporting accessibility. So we've done all of that. So what they ended up with is a new application built on modern technologies like Java, HTML5, AngularJS5. So all of the modern technologies and a completely open system, right? So it's easier for them to make changes to it in the future. And that's what we accomplished for them. Very satisfied customer. The second use case story that I want to share with you is we worked with a major technology vendor, and their goal was they had dozens of products that they wanted to bring to the market very quickly, and they came to us because their release management process, their delivery process was extremely slow, very manual. So they came to us, and what we did for them was to convert all of their applications that they built into a container-based delivery. And one of the requirements that they had for us is, we should not be disrupting any of their development work. We should not be disrupting any of their testing efforts, right? So we were able to seamlessly come and introduce the Waymaker high-scale platform into the release management process. So we not only did not disrupt their development, we did not disrupt their existing release management either. So we were able to fit in high scale into that. The end results were great. I mean, as you can see on the table on the right, something that used to take 2 hours to set up an environment, right? If they wanted to set up a test environment or a staging environment, something that used to take 2 hours, we were able to do that in 10 minutes. To get a release out, it used to take them days, a couple of days or more. Now we're able to reduce that to a few hours, right? So these are the kind of savings that we can deliver with the Waymaker high-scale product. So this is across, just one release, one product. If you extrapolate this across many different releases and many different products, you can see the gains that you'll get with the Waymaker high-scale platform. right? So that's at a high level, what I wanted to share with you. Let me just take a couple of minutes here to see the questions that you guys may have, and I'll start responding to that. All right, I see a few questions coming in. Let me, okay, so let me start reading out the question, and then answering those questions as we go along here. So the first question is the question around how does your low-code platform, rapid application development platform, compare to others in the market today? So, I'll just want to tell you that a lot of the low-code platforms have some common things, right? It's the visual development is common. Automatically generating the code is common. So the thing that I want to highlight to you, the different where we differ from a lot of the other low-code providers is in a couple of areas, right? One is in the application code that's generated itself. The most important thing that you have to look for is, make sure that the application code generated is completely based off of open standards. You don't want to have any, vendors runtime libraries in there. You don't want to be tied into the vendor in any way. And that's really, really important, right? It has to be such that once you develop the application, you should be able to take the source code and put it in a different platform, right? In fact, if you have an IDE platform like an Eclipse, right, you should be able to make some edits in there. And if you choose to, you should be able to bring it back into the platform to do more of the low-code development, right? So that's the kind of flexibility that you should be looking for. Absolutely no vendor lock-in. The other thing that you should look for in the generated code is, it has to be well laid out, well annotated. It has to be readable. So those are the kind of things that you should look for as well. So that's one big differentiation in terms of the code that's generated from a low-code platform. The second thing that you have to look for is a lot of the low-code platforms that are out there will generate a monolithic code, meaning like, you have one big applications that's very hard to change in the future. So what you should be looking for instead is, hey, is this platform allow me to make use of the APIs, right? Can it automatically generate the APIs for my backend data? Can it support microservices based architecture? Can I assemble my application using pre-existing services, pre-existing components, right? That's the question that you should be asking and seeing if the platform will support that. So, I mean, those are the two main differences that I can think of. Definitely Waymaker also offers you a ton of productivity gains across the entire application life cycle development. During the design phase, there are a ton of templates, a ton of themes that you can use to get your project going. And then there is a ton of features around helping you plug in your existing security provider, collaboration, and a number of other productivity gains that you can have with the Waymaker platform. I would highly encourage you, if you're interested in the Waymaker Rapid platform, go to waymaker.com and sign up for a 30-day free trial. Absolutely no requirement for you to subscribe beyond that. And if you choose to subscribe beyond that, it's only $249 per developer. So you can give that a try. Let me see if there's another question here around platform. Okay, so this is a little bit more technical. The question is around, can my platform support existing APIs? So looks like somebody has a lot of APIs or services on the back end, and they want to know if our platform can leverage all of that. So the answer is yes. So we not only generate the APIs for the existing databases, we can also use any of the API services that you already had or that you already may have developed by now. So we support REST APIs, we support SOAP. In some cases, we even support the real-time data that's coming into an application via a WebSocket, right? So we support all of that. In fact, what we do in our platform is, we take any of these API services and convert them into REST-based APIs and then bind them to the front-end layer. So all of these APIs are well supported. You can import these APIs. In fact, if you have a WSDL file, we can import the WSDL file with these APIs. If you have a URL to the WSDL file, you can point to that. The multiple ways of leveraging your existing APIs. Absolutely, we can support any services, APIs that you have. And we highly encourage that you do that, right? You don't want to build things from scratch, but instead leverage as much as you can. So the third question is around, mobile app development. I'll answer that very quickly. So you can use our own platform to develop, you can use our platform to develop responsive web application, right? So meaning that apps that are developed on the Waymaker platform will work across all of the different devices, whether it's a tablet, whether it's an Android phone or an Apple phone. It will work across many different devices. In addition to that, some people say that, hey, I want to make use of all of the native functionality of a device, and you can absolutely do that. You can build the hybrid mobile apps with the Waymaker platform. So we use, some of you may know about the Cordova library. It's an open source library that helps us to build applications and leverage all of the native functionality. So if you want to use the camera functionality, if you want to use the contacts information from your database, all of that can be made use of through our platform. Just give me a second. I'm going through a couple more questions here. So this is, I think, a little bit more of a specific question from someone outside the US. Are your services available to channel partners outside of the US? Yes, I mean, so we can definitely, please contact us at sales@waymaker.com, so we can talk about that on a one-on-one basis. So we do offer, we do work with, we have a great solution partnership program in place. So we work with services companies. We work with other product companies as well in terms of, OEMing our product or, working with the services team to deliver the right solution to the customer. So please do contact us offline at sales@waymaker.com, and we'll work with you. So this question is again around how long does it take for a developer to become proficient in using Waymaker? This is a great question. We pride ourselves in terms of how easy it is to come up to speed on the Waymaker platform. So we have a hosted version of Waymaker. Just to be clear, we have two different versions of Waymaker. One is a hosted version of Waymaker, which is used by thousands of developers today, right? So people come to waymaker.com and they sign up for, they start with a 30-day free trial, and then they may end up subscribing to the hosted version of Waymaker. So the advantage with that for developers is you can build any number of applications there, and then you can deploy your applications anywhere in the cloud, right? So in terms of learnability, I would highly recommend you to go to the learn page, which is waymaker.com/learn. We have a couple of tutorials to get you started. If you've gone through those couple of tutorials, then you're proficient in Waymaker at that point, right? So we show you how to import your database, how to import your services, and how to build your first set of screens. All of that is explained very clearly in the tutorial. Makes it really easy. If you've gone through the tutorials, then you're familiar with the Waymaker platform. You can start being productive on it, start developing applications for your business from that point on. So this question, I'm not quite sure. The question is around, can we create UI components in Waymaker and integrate those components into our existing application? If yes, then how difficult would that be? I would frame this question a little bit differently. It sounds like you have an existing application. You may want to, take the business logic that you have created. If you have APIs built around that, in fact, you can import the business logic. You can import the services into the Waymaker platform. Where the Waymaker platform helps you the most is in terms of putting it all together, right? Visual development. Use existing components and tying all of the backend pieces together, right? That's the path that I would recommend for you, not the other way around. So once you're done that, once you build an application in Waymaker, then you have the complete source code. You can continue to add more business logic to it. Just to be clear, the reason we call it the low code platform is, it's exactly for that reason. You can always add more custom code to the applications that's generated from Waymaker platform. So the question is, this is a good question. So is it always necessary to create a WAR file if you want to deploy it in local server? I'm asking because I only want to create the UI components in Waymaker without any backend services and deploy it in a server other than Java containers such as IIS. That's a perfectly good question. So there are multiple ways to deploy the application built on Waymaker. Let me just highlight all three of them. So the first obvious thing is, from the Waymaker platform, after you build the application, you can go into the Waymaker, download the entire zip file for your application code, right? So you get the application code. That's application code is in Java, so you can download the entire code. It's a Maven project, so you can take that code, put it into your own version control system, whatever that you have in your enterprise, and then you can go with your own release management process after that, right? That's one path that you can take, right? So a lot of people have done that. The second path is, hey, I don't want to build, the binary artifact. Can I just get a WAR file and deploy it into a standard, J2E application container? That's the second path, and you can certainly do that. That's the WAR file that you're asking about. So if you don't like that approach, that's fine. You can go with the first approach. Or the third approach is really make use of our DevOps platform, right? Where we actually containerize your application and then make it really easy for you to deploy it into, like I said, into a Kubernetes environment, if that's the path that you want to go. And the third option is the path that we recommend for enterprises if they're considering moving a lot of their workload, a lot of their applications to the cloud. So that's the path that we recommend there. So please do keep your questions coming. Let me see if there is anything else that I missed. So question around, can your services help me build new custom applications, or only for modernization, right? So even though the focus of this webinar was on modernization, you can certainly build custom applications using the Waymaker platform, and you can definitely deploy those applications through the Waymaker high-scale product that we have. So, I mean, this is, this would be the easiest use case if you ask me, because if you're building something new from scratch, you'll have a clean database, you'll have a clean schema that you can start with. You understand the current user requirements, very easy to, you can even create the database within the Waymaker platform, or if you already have an existing schema, you can import that and then start building the user interface all through, drag and drop and visual development. So we have different types of components pre-built. There's one other thing that I didn't touch upon, which is we have this notion of prefab components, meaning it's a combination of the user interface tied to a backend service. Once you created a prefab, you can use that prefab across many different applications. It goes back to the reusability of components that you build. So all that is available. Definitely you can build newer applications with the Waymaker. In fact, we've seen a lot of customers get Waymaker and start prototyping new ideas. They have a lot of ideas. They want to start prototyping those ideas and show it to the customers, show it to the business owners. And if they get traction with that, then they will develop a full-fledged application on top of that, right? So those are the use cases that we see a lot. So this question, I think I already answered. Is there a hosted version of Waymaker? Yes, we do have. So we have two versions of Waymaker, right? Both for the rapid product as well as the high scale product. The hosted version is just that, like, you can go in there. Once you set up your account, you can start building applications on the hosted version, and you can deploy it anywhere. We also have the on-premise version, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So on-premise version is what some of the enterprise customers are using today. Even though their ultimate goal is to build applications and deploy them in the cloud, the current situation for them is, there's a lot of data that they have to test against. There's a lot of services that sit behind the firewall that they want to build against. So that's the reason they get an on-premise version, so that they can develop their application properly and then selectively expose the data or services from a public cloud. And that's what they're doing. They deploy their applications internally, make sure that it's all working, and then what's working, they gradually start moving it into a public cloud. So that option exists for both our products. So yeah, I think we covered most of the questions that have come in. So if I missed anything, so feel free to reach out to either, you can go to, if you're already using Waymaker and you have technical questions, if things are not clear, where the documentation may be, the best URL, the best email address for you would be support@waymaker.com. If you're a new customer considering, either talking to us or licensing a product, or need help with thinking through your modernization effort, please reach out to sales@waymaker.com. So we have offices in Mountain View. We have office in Europe. We're based out of London there. And then we also have offices in the APAC region. So we have a global footprint. No matter where you are, you can definitely reach out to us, and definitely visit our website, which is waymaker.com. So there's a ton of information on our website, and hopefully you can connect with us. So with that, I thank you very much for joining the webinar this morning, afternoon, evening, depending on your time zone. So we really appreciate your time, and do keep in touch with us. Thank you.